Since it's so hard, why do you still do it?
Actually, يعني Faye, this is a very interesting question, and I've been grappling with this for a very long time. Especially when you're thinking what's next and what to do. And I realized that this drive, if it's within you, then you have to accept yourself as is. If being an entrepreneur drives you, it's a drive within you, then just accept it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
Yes.
Hello everyone, welcome to Loving Life conversation series, People Who Change the World. Today we have Lateefa, MD of Saudi Endeavor. Welcome.
Thank you, Faye. Lovely to have you here.
So I wanted to start with your life as a serial entrepreneur. You founded your first company at the age of 16, and you had a passion for Arabic coffee. Would you like to share the backstory of how you founded your coffee company, Yatuk?
Sure. So actually, the company I started when I was 16 had nothing to do with coffee. It was more of a very much Web 1.0 restaurant and hotel directory, similar to what Foursquare does today, let's say. But it was too early for its days. The number of internet users back in Saudi in the late 90s was even less than 1,000, I believe. But it triggered me getting into computer science and learning how to code so that I would know the ins and outs of what does a web-based business or an internet business look like and how it's run and stuff like that. And even throughout my journey in the university and even in the first few years when I started working in the private sector, I really loved Arabic coffee. Arabic coffee is the number one coffee being consumed in Saudi and the GCC region. It is how people get together. That's what they consume. And back then, if you wanted a really good pot, the only way you could have it is by brewing it yourself in the house. You couldn't walk into a supermarket and buy fresh Arabic coffee. You still had no equipment. You needed a stove, you needed a brewer, and it takes at least 30 minutes of your day. I'm a big fan of it though, and so I decided to make it simple for people. And we started with making ready-made blends, similar to the concept of cake mix, like Petty Crocker cake mix. Took it to a Sunday market-like exhibit, 3 days, sold out all the quantity we prepared. So at that point, I realized that this is a problem that's solving something for others, not just for me. And then the next step was not just the ingredients problem, solving the brewing problem. So how can you brew it easily without needing equipment? And I remember going through every single coffee invention in the world. Like I remember at a certain point, my kitchen had all types of machines, from very traditional percolators up to the advanced espresso machines. And none of them could serve the brewing or the preparation of Arabic coffee. So I need to make a machine.
Right.
And that's how the idea of making Yatuk, the Arabic coffee, the first ever Arabic coffee machine, came into reality. So I submitted the patent in 2012. The machine was ready for mass production in June 2013. And bootstrapped the company all the way. In 2013, when we started selling the machines for the first time, it was more of I sold it through an online store that allowed pre-orders. So I actually developed the online store myself. Like Kickstarter did not even exist or operate in our region. But what was interesting that to the day we launched, over the whole quantity that's being shipped from the factory was sold before it hit our shores. And it was a very interesting moment of growth. Like, product market fit is there.
Yes.
Now we need to grow.
We need to scale.
We need to scale. Yeah. And fast forward 4 or 5 years later, started growing the business, developed a factory, a small factory that produces, roasts and packages coffee, and then we build the distribution through supermarket chains, modern retail, and online. Sold the machine in over 8 countries through our presence through like distributors or through online or the online store. And I don't think Arabic coffee stayed the same ever since. Like, a lot of players came into the market. It became bigger. Now, if you walk into any supermarket, there is a category, like an established category called Arabic coffee.
And you were the trailblazer for that.
Yes, and I hope I was, but like, even if you like big corporations like Nestle, started developing for this consumer. While traditionally, if you go into all these, like, if you are a modern Arabic or Saudi youth who enjoys their traditional coffee, you won't find it. If you walk into coffee shops, if you walk into supermarkets, or so I was driven by that. Like, we have something really special, but we need to modernize it.
Yes, I'm very touched because, Cecilia usually doesn't drink coffee, but I think she has 3 cups today. So when you mentioned product market fit, there's clearly a market. So you saw the opportunity and you wanted to share it. You want to modernize the traditional coffee. What was the hardest part throughout this journey, from the very beginning to, finding product market fit to scaling the whole journey?
Yeah, and what's interesting is companies go through phases, and every phase has its own challenges. Like, in the beginning was how, like, just acquiring the knowledge of how to roast. How do you build a machine? If I'm a computer scientist, like, I build websites and databases, and I don't know how to do electronics. Like, how can you build the knowledge and the know-how? And it took me at least 2.5 years to build that supply chain knowledge, financing the initial investment. There were tough moments where I thought I would give up. It will not work. And I remember also at certain points, like when I started distribution, I discovered that distribution into traditional retail is very tough. And actually, most of the products I put in the market, they didn't pay me. So I realized, what's interesting, like, when you come to a market that's already established and you have zero experience,
right,
then you have to learn the hard way.
Yes.
But and I guess also scaling. One of them. Actually, there is a Harvard business case where we focused on the challenges of the scale phase, when you've already built distribution, you've built the factory and all of that, and how do you fend out competition, changing market conditions, and especially if you're doing something innovative, sometimes there are innovations that come after you that will disrupt what you've done as well. All of these were great learnings, honestly. But again, if you truly enjoy this, problem solving, building, then challenges, you can overcome them.
Yes, because at each step of the way, there's different things to learn. But the important thing is to learn and adapt very quickly. You mentioned there were times you thought, I wanted to give up. What are those hardest moments, if you may share? I'm sure there are many. And then more importantly, how you decided to keep going at those times of you wanted to give up.
Interesting. And I remember one time before even the machine was ready for distribution, I had a small micro factory or roastery to produce coffee, and the machine broke down. And we had orders, so I had to take all. I had to go to another supplier and do it using my own car, move the product using my own car to. And this was really early days, يعني. And I remember calling my dad and saying, خلاص, and I don't think this will work. All the girls in my age do different stuff. And why am I doing this? And my father is like, Lateefa, you've been at this for 2 years. Yeah, if there's no sun at the end of the tunnel, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to do something. Go put your energy somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna do it. And then I close the phone, and I'm like in middle of this small roastery that's helping me grind because my grinder broke down.
Right.
And while he's grinding, I'm like, and remembering the conversation I just had, and then I pick up and call my father again. I'm like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna do it. I think that we're on to something. But يعني fast forward like maybe a few later, let's say 6-7 months, then things started to kick off. And I was glad to have that kind of support as you learn, يعني.
Yes. When you mentioned about calling your father, I had tears in my eyes because the life of an entrepreneur is really hard, but we still do it. And it's really important to have people who support you in a deep way. And I wanted to ask, since it's so hard, why do you still do it?
Actually, and this is a very interesting question, and I've been grappling with this for a very long time. Especially when you're thinking what's next and what to do, and I realized that this drive, if it's within you, then you have to accept yourself as is. Like you don't have to. It comes with hardship, but if that's how you find purpose in life, how you find meaning, like if you solving problems, changing, improving, inspiring others. I don't know how to put it, but if being an entrepreneur drives you, it's a drive within you, then just accept it. Accept it and enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
Yes, accept who you are. And speaking of, I have one daughter and one son, and then I know you have 2 kids. You also really care about women empowerment, and that's how you founded Sela. Share with us why Sela and how you found it, and what's the vision for building a professional women network.
So back actually around the same time as building it up, I came across a group of really impressive females and women in Saudi. We were, I think, a group of 10 women who founded Sela in the beginning. And we were all united with one purpose on how you create more opportunity for females to thrive. Especially back then, like in that time, very few networks were there to share opportunity, to share learning, mentorship for women in general, and especially in the professional sector. Like not a lot of women were finding jobs and careers in private sector. Typically, you would find them either in education or in medicine, but very few had careers in like the financial industry or in the tech industry. And there were some, but we wanted to create a platform for their stories to be shared, for them to inspire others. We wanted to create a platform where opportunities can, and I remember after we established Sela, we used to celebrate, like one lady will come and say, I had my big aha moment when you had that talk and you invited this very inspirational lady who talked about her career, and then I went back and it changed me. Or when a lady also, that time in Saudi, that wasn't typical. Like she would come and say, oh, I found a job. I was offered a job through my connections in Sila and through my presence in these Sila activities, that I got a very interesting job doing energy stuff. And I know that this type of opportunities typically weren't accessible. And and when you hear stories like this, that's exactly what drove us on how can we support more women. We also developed, so one of the initiatives Sila did was educating women on how, and ladies and girls, on how to what does professional networking mean. We come from very traditional societies where women are typically, even men, but more so women, where you build a relationship based on your family,
Yes.
on your classmates, on your very close friends that are typically come either from a social setting like a family connection, or they come from a school connection.
Right.
However, we know, especially in the Western world, that more opportunity comes from these not so close relationships.
Yes. Yes.
It comes from these relationships that are a bit softer. And we developed a workshop. It was, and I think in the first year, at least 400 women attended, where basically we taught them that not every relationship needs to be like, you are my sister, or you're my family member, or my close friend. There is something in the middle, and you should cultivate that. It's something that you have to cultivate in order for you to progress in your career, to find opportunity, to learn, to get inspired. And I remember, like, many of those women who attended these courses back, and now they're big leaders.
Yes.
In their own organizations. And Sila continue to be a very impactful, in my view, a very impactful initiative at a very critical time in Saudi and women history. Alhamdulillah, now you know how things change a lot, alhamdulillah.
Yes.
I don't think that the critical need it was as acute. Now it's not as acute as it used to be. Luckily, now we kind of crossed timing where more women are in the private sector, more women have access to jobs. There is a lot of knowledge sharing. It's not such a social, and it's more socially acceptable.
Yes.
And it's and that's where my focus started on supporting entrepreneurs. More so.
So Sila really was founded at a time where knowledge of how to network professionally for women didn't really exist. And it's very important to empower women with that knowledge. And actually, I really echo what you talk about cultivating a relationship, not to the super close ones, but to the soft one, and having the courage to even reach out to people. You know, as I remember when I was in college, and there were times that I felt afraid to approach people to say, oh, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. And I feel women, a lot of time we have that fear about reaching out to people. Are there any lessons or wisdom you can share about how to overcome the inner fear of reaching out or develop as professional-wise?
Absolutely. By the way, I have to congratulate you for being a very good networker.
Oh, thank you very much.
A very good.
Making some progress.
Yes. Lesson, Lynn, I guess, well, first, I always say this, regardless, it's networking, or it's the biggest barrier especially for women, is self-confidence.
Yes.
Like, if you believe that you have the confidence, and you have, and this goes, by the way, for both genders, and not, whether it's a woman or a man, but more so that if you have this inner belief that you deserve this, that you have this confidence, not just deserve, but if you have the belief in yourself,
Yes.
then a lot of barriers will you will be able to overcome them. When you grow up in a society where you're very shielded, you're shy, it's not easy to overcome
Yes.
it. So I think that's a very critical thing, is building your inner confidence. And how can we, even as mothers, I know this is top of mind as parents as well, how can we enlist that in our kids?
Yes.
And how can you build this self-confidence in them? And another part maybe is I always, this is a small tip, I remember reading it somewhere. It's like to have a wing woman.
To have a wing woman.
What
a wing.
does that woman? What does that mean? Like,
Yes.
Like if you know there is an event happening, or there is a place where there's a lot of people that you don't know.
Yes.
Don't go alone.
Don't go alone.
Like it makes it much easier.
Yes.
If you have somebody to tag along with you, and they become your wing.
Yes.
And you become their wing.
Yes.
Meaning like you navigate the room and the people, and you introduce each other.
Yes.
So, and that makes more easier.
Yes.
To build relationships.
Yes, I do agree. When you travel alone, you travel fast. When you travel with others, you travel further, and then you feel you can support each other.
Yes.
And then when you mentioned about self-confidence and belief, I do think that's very important. So whenever I face challenges, I think about my strong belief. Even this show, Loving Life, is about a strong belief I have, which is people who pursue their passion can make this world better. And you mentioned now you support entrepreneurs, and congratulate for 10-year anniversary for Saudi Endeavor. Really would like to hear more about why you decided to join Endeavor at MD, and what belief you have for supporting the local entrepreneurs in MENA region.
Endeavor had a very impactful, and it was very impactful on my own journey when I was growing it as an entrepreneur. And it was, and when they asked me to join as a managing director for the Saudi chapter back in the end of 2018, back then it was the right moment. Also because I know it had such an impact on me as an entrepreneur, and I wanted to continue, to help more entrepreneurs. And when you've been at the other end, it makes it even more a no-brainer, at least for me, on how we can even go further on how we can support entrepreneurs in Saudi. Endeavor has a focus on what we call high impact entrepreneurs, meaning entrepreneurs who might not be large in quantity, like we don't touch thousands. No, it's more towards the hundreds and even less. But it's how can you find the power of the few? Like how can you support these entrepreneurs or companies that truly have huge impact, whether it's job creation, whether succeeding creating these multiplier networks, or the mafias, if I may say, that will help produce more and more entrepreneurs who go through the journey of scaling a company and then start their own, and then suddenly the ecosystem is thriving in its own. So I was driven by that belief, and personally I find myself lucky to have a platform like Endeavor to give back, but also enjoy entrepreneurship.
Yes. And what kind of support do you think entrepreneurs need the most, since you have been in that journey?
Well, طبعا entrepreneurs at different stages need different help. Like if they are early in their company journey, they are striving to find this first company, their first few customers, proving the product, finding product market fit, understanding what's the right pricing, what's the right go-to-market strategy. And once they find it, then there is another set of challenges, is how to scale. And not everybody can make that jump. And also, once you've achieved that, how can you go beyond and reach even greater markets, more markets? How can you grow the person, the entrepreneur himself that's running an early stage, idea stage business, small business is different than the entrepreneur and the capabilities, even from a leadership perspective, on running and growing a company at a very large scale. So different stages require different skill set, and how can you upskill the entrepreneur to have the knowledge and the know-how of how to run a business? Because of our focus on these high impact companies, typically the same entrepreneur is we would ask him to be the inventor, the product manager, the first salesman, and then the same person needs to grow to become like the CEO of a large group and be the inspirational strategic person. So how can you bridge that transition and help them grow into it? This is an area I think that definitely there is an opportunity to do more there. It's even less of a thing if an entrepreneur had previous C-level experience at a large corporation. So he's seen how big companies grow, and then they start building on that knowledge. But not a lot of entrepreneurs have that.
Right.
And other than that, entrepreneurs also need to be able to find funding and find investment. They need to also, and I think the best thing you can do is have them learn from their peers and create communities for these learnings to be shared. And I can go on and on what entrepreneurs need, but I think this is what comes to my mind.
We're towards the end of our interview, and I always like to end with something more personal. So you are a mother of two, and you have a big job at Saudi Endeavor. How do you balance or integrate, work and life? How do you make sure you refuel your own energy so that you have more to give for your kids, for your entrepreneurs, for your colleague, and for your team?
This is an ongoing challenge, I guess, and trying to figure it out as we go. I think one lesson learned for me personally was being very, let's say, very deliberate in finding, in taking time off, in making sure that you're not always working 24/7, deliberately creating moments for you and for your family to take a break and simply have fun. Like being deliberate and having fun time.
Yes.
Which is something I think, at least for me, as I typically, even for other entrepreneurs, I think we love so much what we do that we kind of forget it.
Yes.
And my biggest learning was deliberately having fun.
Deliberately having fun, like plan things for fun.
Yes.
Plan things to do nothing.
Yes, and it's okay. I mean, it doesn't make you less of a successful person or less of an. Sometimes you live in an environment or you grow up around where having fun or taking a break or is not people don't view it as a good thing. Like, but if you're working with achieving, then that's perceived as something. Wow, yeah. But now I realize that I also celebrate moments when you take a break, when you have fun, and not to look down at it.
Yes.
I don't know if this resonates or not, but at least in my situation.
It's part of being human. And I feel only when we replenish ourselves, we can give more. If we're just working, then sometimes we miss the meaning of.
Especially if if you're part of a culture that's more towards
achievement
and working. And,
yes.
And so this is something, and it builds also on mental health. On your question about mental health, is that in order for you to continue being productive on the long run, you need to be deliberate And we need to promote a culture where if somebody takes a break or where a life, and this is, by the way, I think it's an interesting subject. Like, do we promote hard work and working all the time, or is it the new wave of how people will work now, more remotely, more flexible? There is this new generation where they don't want to work all the time.
Yes.
And I think we're grappling with this new shift of mindset.
Yes.
And even more so for entrepreneurs, like you want to go build the next big thing, but how will you address this new generation of people who will be building your company with you, but will not necessarily be okay to to work the same way people used to 10, 20, 50 years ago. I think there is a shift in this new generation. COVID changed also that, and
Yes.
I'm seeing this is something like the future of work is something that really interests me.
Yes.
But regardless of I don't regardless of how new generation and the COVID generation
Yes.
also will react, like working remotely, wanting not necessarily wanting to be in office space, having the flexibility, not in having the pressure. But I think also being mindful as a person. That's one that's internal within you. The second is how can you make sure you have a healthy culture.
Healthy culture.
Whether it is socially in a social setting or a healthy culture within a company. That it rewards achievement, but also rewards balance.
Yes, that's very important because culture is about what you do. If an employee or a team member sees you, someone who founded the company, taking time off, I think that's an encouragement for them to do so as well, instead of, oh, we have to reply to email at 11:30 p.m. I think that's very important. You mentioned about the future of work, where people feel that they want to have flexible hours. They want to not come to the office to work remote. And I feel people also want to be empowered to be themselves while working for a company. What type of culture do you think we should create so that people feel, number one, they want to contribute to the company, and number two, they feel themselves to be authentic?
I think it's wearing the hat of the entrepreneur. I think understanding what your company values are and what will drive success for your company is number one. Like once you realize that, whoever you will invite to join the team or needs to be somebody who fits with that, with these values, fits with that culture. It's unrealistic for us to expect people to change. But it's also unrealistic for us to expect businesses that finally find this working success in a setting somewhere that to force them to change just because of others. So I think the best way is to match how you found, like what to drive you to succeed as a company, understanding your values and what matters, and then matching and finding people who really is it the person who wants to work remote, or is it person who wants whatever works for your company.
Yes.
I think I would say that's key.
Yes, it's really about understanding and communicating for both sides to find something that works for.
And finding the right match.
Finding the right match, yes. Yes, finding the right match. Final question I have, which I asked at the end of the interview, is how do you define the success of your life?
Yeah, I think you are successful. A person is successful if they find satisfaction at what they do. Whatever it be. Like you might find satisfaction in building a podcast network, but somebody else will say, no, I find satisfaction building a fintech company. Or somebody would say, no, I want to be an employee in a team or a part of a team. I don't want to build. So success for them is different than success for you.
Right, right.
And I think having if you are blessed to have ability to find satisfaction in what you do, and then I think that I would say then you would be successful.
Yes, finding satisfaction in what we do. That's one metric of success. Yes. Thank you so much, Lateefa. It's been so great having you Loving Life, and thank you so much.
And thank you for coming with your family. I'm so happy to see you all.
Yes.
And hopefully we can host you, even show you around more in Saudi. I want to make sure you enjoy the trip.
Yes, thank you so much.